Welcome, everybody. We are going to get started in just a minute. We're waiting until we get live on social media. Are we live, Kaylee?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Welcome to SDP Connect. This is going to be a really great program today. I'm actually in Sacramento wearing my DVU t-shirt, advocating for revenue increases so that when Medicaid starts getting cut next year, it will not have as much of an impact on people with disabilities. Hopefully we're making some progress on that, but I'll keep you posted. We're going to be doing some events all around the state. If anybody's interested in being part of the advocacy that we're doing on this, we would love to have you. We're actually doing meetings around the state in person during the spring recess of the legislature. So probably wherever you live, you are living in an area that we need you. So hopefully you can join us. But let me introduce myself. I'm Judy Mark. I'm president of Disability Voices United. And before we get started, actually, for those people who need interpretation, you can go down to the bottom of your screen and click on the little globe. Sometimes you might have to click on more and then turn on interpretation. We have interpretation in English, Spanish, and Korean. For you English speakers, you need to click interpretation because we will have people speaking in Spanish or Korean and you're going to need to hear the interpretation. So I'm Judy Mark. I'm president of Disability Voices United. I was part of the group of self-advocates and family members who got the law passed in 2013, and we've been very active ever since in the implementation. And I'll throw it to Tina to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Tina Ewing Wilson, and I've been in self-determination program since before it was a law. I was in the pilot project. I started in 2001, so 25 years ago. I was one of the people that helped prove that it was possible.
Well, thanks. So today we are going to be talking with a guest speaker. Her name is Beth Martinko. Beth is everywhere and is doing a lot of things, I'll say. First of all, she is on her self-determination local advisory committee at Regional Center of Orange County. Beth is also the parent of a participant in, I don't know what year is Josh in?
5.
Beth? Year 5. And that's the same as mine. And I also have a son named Josh. Beth has begun an amazing system that she's going to tell you about. So I'll tell you how this all came about and why Beth is here. So we were thinking about what we wanted to talk about at this SDP Connect, and I just hear so much from individuals and families, participants and family members, that one of the biggest barriers they face is that the regional center doesn't get back to them in a timely way. And then Tina is an SDP participant, and I'm part of her circle of support. And I've been seeing her emailing her regional center saying, I need a meeting. They're not getting back to her. So I'm like, let's talk about that. Of course, I had no idea what I was going to say. And then I was looking at the SDP Facebook page that many of you may be part of. And I saw that Beth posted on the Facebook page about this new system that you're going to hear about called Dan, that she is developing using AI and experts to be able to answer questions to get over barriers in the self-determination program and in the developmental services system generally. And I called up Beth. I'm like, this is exactly what we're talking about. And I'm so excited that I know I probably sped it up a little bit. You weren't ready for prime time, but it gave you the nudge to do that. So everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Beth Martinko. And I know that she's going to be sharing her screen and explaining to you a lot about the program that she's creating. But let me also say that you should all feel free to put your comments. She's going to ask you some questions. Go ahead and put it in the chat. We're going to be able to capture it all for her. You're also going to have a chance to ask questions. You can do that in a couple of different ways. You could either put it in the chat and I'll read it out, Or you could use the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom of your screen, and you click on it, and your little hand will go up, and we'll call on you. So we'll go back and forth between people who are raising their hands and people who are using the chat to ask your questions. So I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to let Beth take it away. Go ahead, Beth.
Thank you, Judy. Yes, so Judy did speed this up. I was thinking I might launch it in a couple of months. And then as of last Thursday, we decided we would launch it tonight, which actually is perfect because the DVU community, and particularly SDP Connect, is my home. I mean, like, you guys are my family, and you're the ones that in many ways motivated me and taught me and encouraged me to do this. So it's perfect. It's launching today as a pilot. So I want to do two things tonight. The one is, of course, I want to give you an intro to Dan and let you know how you can get involved and try it out and use it yourself. And then the other thing we really want to do, and Judy mentioned this, is we really want to have an open discussion about what are all the issues that you're seeing, and, like, let's just get them all captured. So, flail away in the chat, like, put every single thing that's ever bugged you about, in there so that we capture it all. We won't be able to talk about it all tonight, but let's capture it all because this is a great opportunity to make sure that we're listening to what is really affecting you. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Kaylee, do you want to share the slides, please? And I do want to mention that this is being developed under the board of the Self-Determination Tech Alliance, and I'm the vice president of that nonprofit, and Kelly Hoops is the president, and he's also joined us today. He's an independent facilitator. I dragged him into the community. And so he speaks Japanese. So he's in San Diego, and he's actually helping a Japanese family right now with their self-determination journey. So he's the boss of me as it relates to this project. Okay, let's go ahead. So Dan stands for Disability Access Navigator. It's a cute name. Dan's a he. And also, I want to point out the very first person to use this for a real issue was Tina, which I think is perfect because Tina was the first person in self-determination. So it's only natural that she was the first person to use Dan. And it helped, right, Tina? I can get her.
Definitely helped. Dan helped me write a letter to my regional center that sounded so professional.
She wanted to quote Dan, thank Dan, but I told her nope, it was all her. And that's exactly what this tool is designed to do. It's designed to help you navigate, give you the words, give you the tools so that you can effectively and with confidence move your issue along. It will not have any magic in it. I promise you at the end of the session, you will not know how to magically get Regional Center to give you everything you want. But it will walk you through, it will help you walk through the process and walk up the ladder of progressively involving more and more and more people till you do get to your answer. And that's really what it's going to do. So it's going to help educate and it's going to help navigate. Okay, next slide, Kaylee. And, I'm speaking to the group that knows this better than anyone. We aren't failing when we don't get what we want, when we don't get what we need when we need it. It's not because we're failing. The system is failing us. And there's a million statistics we could talk about, but we won't waste our time with that tonight. You all know that. Next slide, please. So as Judy said, I asked a simple question on Facebook. I said, I'm trying to understand, when do we hit a wall? When do we get stuck? So I put a few out there and then I said, what did I miss? What has hit you that hasn't? And I got so much response. It's also the first time Judy has ever texted me. So I know it was a good post. And now I have your number, Judy. Next slide, please. So these are the 6 that we came up with. And Dan is right now in a pilot stage. And what that means is I was able to build it by myself using tools. I'm not a developer, so it's narrow. It's not as big and as broad and as wonderful as it can be when it's done. but it's all around these 6 different places where people tend to get stuck in the system. So, there's the denial by delay. I just can't get an answer. That's what Tina was running into yesterday when she used it to write her email to her service coordinator. There's that approaching SDP renewal where you're not as far as you need to be for when your renewal year will kick in. There's when you say I need X and the regional center says no, there's a generic resource for that. You just go take a public swim class. They don't think about the fact that you need mobility assistance and layering on additional supports. There's the goal isn't in the IPP. Is your IPP good enough to support the thing that you're asking for? And then the spending plan, which I know a lot of us are running into recently, you can't move budget around on your spending plan, even though the law says you can. And lastly, the last one we looked at was when they say that's a preference, not a need. A great example of that would be, I want an iPhone. Regional center may say, you don't need an iPhone. That's a fancy, expensive product. Dan helps you walk through what are the features and the needs that you have underneath that request so that you can talk to the regional center about truly what you need, which may end up being an iPhone, but you don't start with that, you end with that. So those are the 6 categories that Dan is designed to help with. So I want to pause there for just a second so you can think about those, and then in the chat, flood any other ones that you think we should look at for the future. These won't change for the pilot, but we will definitely, take on board any and all ideas for when we go into full production. Okay, Kaylee, next slide, please. So the pilot program, as I said, there are these 6, and we're calling them stuck points. I'm stuck. There's an emotional punch to that, right? Like I am stuck. Like get me unstuck. And that's what Dan is designed to do. It's starting in the pilot in Spanish and in English. And I'll show you that. Uh-oh, my dog's going to bark. It is higher level translated Spanish, but not human translated Spanish yet. We need funding to get to that next level. So bear with us on that point if you're using the Spanish portion of it. It just chats with you like it's a friend at midnight or your independent facilitator, but you can talk to him any time of the day or night. Anywhere you can get an internet connection, you can have a conversation with Dan. It's in English and Spanish, I mentioned. You always leave with a draft. You always leave with, what's the next thing I can do? So wherever I'm stuck, what's the next thing I can do? Email my service coordinator, email the manager, email the ombudsperson, whatever it might be for your particular situation. You're leaving with something tangible that you can do so you can shut off your phone, shut off your computer, and go get a good night's sleep knowing you've done what you can in the moment. And I think Tina felt that sense of relief yesterday too. It's like, okay, now I've done what I need to do. It's off my plate. I don't have to just sit here and be frustrated. Important to know is your information always stays private. Dan doesn't ask you for any personal information. It doesn't keep any personal information. When you're done with Dan and you shut that window, Dan goes away and never remembers that he talked to you. However, there's a copy feature that you can copy your conversation with Dan and you can keep that. So let's say your first step was to email your service coordinator like Tina did yesterday. I know she copied her conversation with Dan. So let's say she doesn't hear from her service coordinator for another week. She can come back to Dan and she can copy and paste in that prior conversation, and then Dan will pick up with her right where she left off and she can say, hey, Dan, that person still hasn't answered me, help me figure out what to do next. So it doesn't keep anything, but you can have it recall you with as soon as you paste in your information. We are collecting feedback. It is a pilot, so we want to hear from you. And I'll show you on the tool, there's a feedback place where you can type anything you want to type. That will come directly to me. I'll personally read every bit of feedback. We'll do one of 2 things with it. We'll either put it in the pilot and make the pilot better, or if it's a little more complicated or takes a little more time, we'll put it on the list for what we do when we get funding to do the full-blown program. And then last but not least, we are asking a couple of questions to make sure that we can get good metrics for who's using this tool. This will help us with policy changes and things like that down the road if we can say who's using the tool and what they're using it for. So there's a little bit of non-personal information we're grabbing there. Okay, ready to go to the next slide. Judy, were there any questions or any comments in the chat I should deal with before we go on?
There are a ton. Why don't you finish your slides and
Okay.
then we'll go to them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here's a real example before we get into it. And this example is you can't get a straight answer. Regional Center keeps asking for more information, moving the bar, and it's been months and you're just exhausted. Oh dear, my dog. Um, Dan asked a few questions.
We can barely hear it, Beth.
Oh, good, because I'm panicking. Dan asked a few questions. You know, how long has this been going on? Is there a deadline bearing down? What's the impact? So it's looking at time, it's looking at impact, and then is there a health or a safety or a functional impact? So the first thing Dan is doing is listening to you. What's wrong? What's going on? The second thing it does is he will help you understand, okay, here's where you're at. He'll reassure you that what you're seeing is real and it's frustrating. And of course, that's, that's important. And in this example, again, he'll say, hey, sometimes people call that denial by delay. You're just getting dragged, forever without an answer. The next step he takes is what can I specifically recommend to you that you take as the next step? And again, there's this sort of gradual escalation arc where you start with just talking to your service coordinator all the way through to go up to OCRA and to a fair hearings appeal. So it walks you through that path depending on your answers to those questions. And then the very last thing is it'll always offer to draft you an email or talking points. It always will leave you with a specific path that you can take. Okay, next slide. We're going to pass this one for now because we'll come back to it after we're done with the slides. So where we are, as I said, we're in the pilot. We're calling it Dan Light. It is invite only, but we want to spread it as far and wide as we can. So Kaylee will share with you the invite link that you can sign up to join the pilot. You can use it for real things. You can use it for pretend things. It is around those 6 stuck points. And as I said, it's in English and Spanish, and the feedback pipeline is very active. And then as far as how fast we go and how far we go in the future, it all depends on what kind of funding we can get and how valuable this is to the community. Is it worth building out? So we're hopeful it will be very helpful, and we're hopeful that we'll find people with pockets that would like to help us build it out all the way. Next slide. So our the early access, our asks of you, I obviously didn't practice that out loud. Are these the right stuck points? What should we add? And just like pour them all into the chat. We just want to know. We want to know as you work with it, what's wrong, what doesn't work, what trips you up, what do you have questions about? And then what else could we be doing? Anything else we could be doing with this? And so it's pretty simple. We just want the community to join. And as Judy said, last week we didn't think we were launching the pilot today, but the quicker actually we can get the community involved, the better. I've met with 6 different people that are deep into self-determination over the last week since I talked with Judy. Each one of them have come up with great ideas, many of which are already in the pilot now. And so, the more feedback, the better. At this point, we're just going to let it rip. All right, next slide. I think that's it. Is that it? Nope. So the last slide. I'm just a mom. Tina said, lead with you're a mom. I'm just a mom, just trying to make the world a better place. This is built on your experience, my listening to your experience, my experiences. And basically, it's just here because everybody deserves to be able to know what they can do and what they can ask for, even if it's 2 in the morning and you're worried. And that's it for the presentation.
Okay, so everybody is, there's tons of ideas coming up in the chat.
Right.
And so people, as I mentioned earlier, people, you have an opportunity to speak directly to Beth and the Dan folks. And so you can do that by using the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. You go like this, and your hand is raised. And when you do that, Tina will see you and Tina will call on you. I can't tell if anybody's hands are raised
There's a
yet.
hand raised. It's Austin Coffee.
Okay. And I'm going to start looking through the chat because there's a ton of stuff going on in the chat.
Okay. And then at the point where you want to, we can pause and do a little quick demo.
Oh, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, let's do the demo before Austin asks this question.
Okay.
Okay, because that's going to bring about more questions.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to share my screen and Beth, you tell me what to do.
I will. Don't push anything till I tell you.
You
Because
got
otherwise
it.
it'll take off and we won't be able to go back to where we were. So this is the main landing page. The first thing you'll see is a Google sign up form to get to this page. But then this is the home page of Dan. And you'll see in the upper right, if you can move your cursor up there, and you can actually click on those, the English, click on the Spanish, and then back to English. So you can see it's in English and Spanish. Again, this Spanish is not perfect, so part of our funding will go towards making the Spanish version much more human-centered. But it's there at least to make sure that we're reaching out to the whole community right from the beginning. And again, additional languages, I know there's Korean interpreter on today. Initial languages will come as well as we get funding. We're committed to this being free to everybody and accessible to everybody all the time. So that's our commitment of where we're headed. So you can see this is basically just saying it's helping you navigate. There is, if you scroll down a little bit there, Kaylee, I mean, you're going to have to, when you click here to Let's Get Started, you are agreeing that this is an information tool and that's not legal advice. And that's fancy wording for don't sue me. Don't sue Kelly. That's really all that means. So click on the Let's Get Started. All right, and then the first thing we'll do is ask you a couple of demographics. We have the age categories broken down by the types of programs that, categories that regional centers use. So it's helpful if you can answer one of those. So Kaylee, let's say we're 22 to 56. And then you have to select your regional center. So let's use Orange County because that's the one I'm using for testing. Of course, it's not up at the top. And that's so we can do reporting by regional center. So we can get back to the local advisory committees and say, you've had 58 requests this month for, I'm not getting an answer. Like this is going to give you real data to go back to your regional centers, not just I hear or people say. So that's a very important part of it. And then there's the race ethnicity question that you can answer or skip. That one's optional. So go ahead and click on Let's Get Started again. All right, now you're in the tool. Here's those 6 same things. We renamed the denial by delay to we're waiting for an answer. We want Dan's voice to be collaborative with the regional center. We want to assume collaboration and assume everything's going to go well. So we took the denial out of delay on the front end. But you'll see if you get in there and you say, I've been waiting 6 months for something, it will tell you, yeah, people call that denial by delay. But we don't start with that because we want to start with the presumption that everything's going to go well. So these are the same 6 issues. Go ahead and click on that one at the top. We're waiting for an answer. There you go. And now here's Dan. This is Dan's first voice. You'll see there's a start over button up in the top left. If you get partway through and you want to go back, that'll go back to those 6 questions again if you want, as if you never answered any. You can obviously switch between English and Spanish if you want through there. Down at the very bottom, you'll see a how is Dan doing? And there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And then there's a text box right below that. And this is where you can put feedback in about the tool itself. Like I didn't like the answer I got, or I love the answer that I got, or you should ask this question, or you shouldn't ask that question, all that type of feedback. You can just type it in as you go and click send all along. So you don't have to wait till the end and try to remember what you thought. So anyway, Dan is saying, okay, I hear you. It's hard to wait for an answer. How long, what are you waiting on? So we're going to say, Kaylee, for the demo, we're going to say a general response from regional center, the first one. And the little dots mean that Dan is thinking. Okay, he comes back. I understand you're waiting for a general response. First, how long have you been waiting for this response? And we're going to say 2 to 3 weeks. Uh-oh. And don't you love live demos?
I'm gonna reload.
That is not good. You have to pick, yeah, you have to pick the regional center again. So we may go to questions sooner than we thought.
Okay, we did a general response.
Yep, general response. And you will notice if you go through each time, depending on exactly how you word things, service you requested. Yep, that first one there. Yep. All right, let's pick a few days this time, just in case it was. Yes, yay. Okay. So it's basically saying politely, a few days in regional center is like 2 minutes in the real world, right? Like that's not very long for a regional center at all, but it's going to say it more politely. But it's also going to say how urgent is it? Like, is there a deadline approaching? So if you scroll down so you can see those options. And now that we've gone through a couple of levels, you'll see in yellow this reminder. If you close this window, you'll lose your conversation. So it's reminding you, if you look up at the top right, you'll see there's a copy conversation. And if you click on that copy conversation, it'll copy everything Dan said and you said to a text file that you can save and come back to later. You can also download it and it'll just if you're on your own computer, you can click the download link and it'll just drop it right into your download folder. So, okay, let's say there's no deadline, but there's a safety or health impact. And then let's not do that. Let's start over. So we're not going to keep going because I don't want to, it looks like something introduced itself this afternoon. So I'll have to test it. But it basically keeps going. If you look up here at the bar at the top, it tells you like all the steps that you've gone through. So the one that's highlighted right now is no deadline. The next step that it would have done would have been offering to draft you an email, and then would have given you the chance to copy that email to your email message and go ahead and send it off. But it'll stay conversational. You can say as much as you want, as little as you want. You can talk to it as much as you want, as little as you want. So it's all on you. It's your journey where you want to go and what you want to do with it.
Should I stop sharing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm mad at it.
Wonderful.
Probably just an internet thing. Maybe there was
I
a
tested this
lag
thing 500 times today. 500 times.
Right. But you have to test it while you're on Zoom
That
because
might
Zoom
be.
can mess things up.
That
Believe
might
me.
Yeah,
be.
it
Yeah.
might just be that internet's
Yes.
overloaded.
Yes.
Like,
So I apologize for that, folks. But you got the gist of it. You got to see how it works and how it goes back and forth with you. And it's there to help you. It's there to be your buddy. It's there to be on your side, not on anybody else's side, just to listen to what you want, what you think you need. And then it's going to give you information built on real information. So it's not going out to the internet. It's not an AI tool that's going out to the internet or going to Facebook and saying, what wild, crazy idea can I come up with to share with this person I don't know? It's working with information that people like Tina and Judy and I and some independent facilitators have verified as accurate and complete information. So pause there.
are we ready to go to questions?
Yes.
Yeah, we are. And you can go ahead and call on somebody and then
Okay,
I have a
Austin,
bunch of them.
you had your hand up. Austin, do you want to speak? Okay, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I have so many questions. This is really a really exciting project, and I really want to thank you, Beth, for sharing it. I'm wondering, so I guess, do you envision this eventually sort of like integrating with helping people find like specific person-centered planners and like IFs and service providers and that kind of thing? Like, what is the roadmap, I guess?
Yeah, the roadmap is really to work with the information that's correct and available. As DDS and regional centers firm up the requirements for IFs, It might, in certification for IFs, it could definitely expand in that area. It definitely will know FMSs and like how you could pick an FMS. We don't want to work with anything that's a personal opinion or speculative. We want it to be something that you can really count on. So nothing will go into it that hasn't like really passed the test.
Yeah, and that was a question that was in the chat as well, where somebody was asking, how are you going to verify that this information is accurate? And so I think you kind of answered that. That was the Raji's question
Yeah.
at 450.
Yeah,
That was
I could say a few more words about
Mhm.
that. Dan has a brain, and Dan's brain is filled with Tina, with Judy, with Miriam, with Sandra Van Scotter. It's filled with all the smart people that know the system. It's not filled with internet garbage. So it's only going to go into Dan's brain if people, and as it starts out right now, that I personally know what's going on. So there's different layers. It starts with the law, the Lanterman law that we all love that Judy helped get passed. Then it goes into the DDS layer where they have directives and FAQs. Those are all facts, right? Those are all things that we have to deal with. Those aren't really, we could disagree with them, but they're facts. So all that goes into Dan's brain. Then there's the layer for regional centers. What are their particular rules? What are their POSs look like? Those are also factual. Those will go in. So that's the kind of stuff that goes in as factual. Then layered on top of that will be an expert advisor angle to it. So it'll say this is the law, this is what DDS says, this is what your regional center POS says. And advisors have found that where we have expert advisor input, that will then come in as well. So you'll be able to see that full brain, but nothing goes into that brain that we haven't vetted. And there's nobody outside the community involved in this. There are no bureaucrats involved in this. There are, there are no big companies. There are no AI people. This is like literally built by the community for the community.
That's so wonderful. So I have a follow-up to how you were just describing it, because, if we all know that DDS has written a ton of directives
Mhm.
and that some regional centers interpret them differently than others,
Yes.
partly because the directives are not written clearly,
Yes.
and partly because they're making stuff up at a regional center. Um, so is that where you might use your advisors when things are not
Yes.
clear? And
Yes.
and by the way, there are times where even us advisors, there's no clarity because
Disagree.
DDS hasn't established it.
Yes.
Right.
Correct. Correct. So an example of that would be like in the spending plan, are you allowed to spend respite budget for community activities, right? So right now, Dan knows that some regional centers are being extremely rigid on that. And it will tell you that it doesn't have the localization to regional center in yet. I need funding for that. But it will say your regional center may be very strict on this. They may go above and beyond what many think the law is and say you can only do this, right? So it will allude to that. And as we get more and more participation, yes, that's where the advisor level comes in. Like your regional center may be interpreting this way, another regional center may be interpreting it that way. It's also going to know what are in the fair hearings, right? So it'll know what all the fair
Mm.
hearings have been. So it'll say there was a fair hearing on this, and this is what that said. It's not binding, it could change, but just
Hmm.
FYI, here's what the fair hearing said.
Yeah. And fair hearings set no precedent. So I think it would
Correct.
be important for you to say
Yes,
that for
yes,
Dan to be able to say that.
yes.
Yeah.
That'll come in the full program. That's not in
Yeah.
the pilot. So, but
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So Faith was asking how Dan is going to differ from just using Chat GPT.
Completely.
Mhm.
Completely. When you ask your question in Chat GPT, it's going to go, it's a large language learning model, I think is what they call it. So it's going to go out, it's going to search what it thinks are relevant pieces of information, and then it's going to give you an answer. I can give you a perfect example. I was talking with Miriam from North LA, local advisory committee. She said, yep, I don't like AI that much. I use it, but I went out on Chat GPT and I said, give me all the directives that relate to financial management services. And she said, and I got a wrong answer. And I'm like, well, what did you get? And she said, I got 5 directives that talk about regional center FMSs. So Dan and I went out shopping and said, with our approach, with our quality approach, how many directives do we find? And I sent her a 20-page document an hour after I had that conversation with her that showed her the 21 directives that mention FMSs and in detail, and the relationship to the FAQs, bringing them in, and the most recent presentation from DDS about the new rules they're trying to put on FMSs, which we think they shouldn't do until they put rules on the regional centers. So, it's a completely different process. It's only vetted information. So we curate it before it goes into Dan.
So Tina, are there any hands up? Because I'm not looking.
Yes, there are
Okay.
2
Okay,
hands
go ahead.
raised.
So call the next one and then I'll do a bunch from the chat.
Okay, it's Raji H.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much, Beth. It's wonderful that we're going to have something like this very soon. I have 3 questions, very really quick ones.
Okay.
The first one is, are these responses going to be regional center specific? Because I know each regional center has their own opinions, policies,
Yes.
and stuff. So that, yes.
Okay, so that first question, in the pilot, no. In the pilot, it's going to work with kind of statewide law and statewide policies. So like the fair hearing process is statewide. The IPP process is now statewide. The how do you escalate through the chain of command is pretty much generic, regardless of which regional center you're with. So those very unique regional center information that's contained in the POSs and their other policies that they have, that's part of the full DAN that we're going to be seeking funding to go get built in. It would work roughly the same way. It's just that we actually need a real developer to help me with that layer. Everything else I've done on my own with my laptop on my bed. But I need a real developer to do the regional center specific stuff. That's one layer too deep for my brain.
Yeah, totally understood. The second question I have is about, the directives get updated, right? So the responses will be based on the updated directive.
Yes. In the pilot, it's fixed, but I'm watching. And in the full Dan, when we get the development layer in, it will actually be out pulling any current updates in addition to what's already in its brain. So it will be current.
Okay. And the last question or comment is, my frustration with regional center is when I start any process, right? Anything. It could be renewal, it could be revision to the spending plan, budget, whatever. The thing is that it's like the question just goes into the ocean. And you really don't know where it is in the process, which step is it in the process? Is it hanging with the case management team? Is it with the SDP team? Or is it with the exceptional committee, where they need to approve it? And does it even require exceptional committee to, exceptions committee to approve things like that? That's the biggest frustration because I'm going through it right now and I went through it last year too. They push you to the deadline and then they will make you work and turn around the spending plan in one day.
That is absolutely correct. And that is an experience shared by many, if not all of us. I completely agree with you. And again, Dan won't be a magic solution to that. But what Dan can do is start helping everyone to formulate the correct emails that document where you're at in the process, how long you've been in the process, the prior steps you've taken. So it will start to look like a regular pattern to the regional centers. And it's much harder to ignore a strong paper trail than it is not having a strong paper trail. So by us all sort of following the same path, we're building this library of, what's happening and what's more importantly, what's not happening. That's going to make it so much harder for the regional centers to ignore us. And if you think about it from a service coordinator's perspective, let's say they have 75 cases. If 3 of the cases have very clear emails saying, this is what I've done, this is what I'm expecting you to do, this is when I'm expecting to hear from you from, and all you have to do is do X, the service coordinator is much more likely to pick that case up and work on it first because it's very clear. They don't have to go back and refresh their memory, what's going on, blah, 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 right? So those three families are likely to move ahead of the pack. So imagine if we have all 75 families doing that. Now they're like, oh boy, I got to do all these now, right? So it'll help, but it won't completely fix. Does that make sense? She's gone.
Yeah, sometimes they get muted.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, I think Raji brings up, one of her questions brings up a really important point about when there's a new directive.
Mhm,
And so sometimes, this is just some advice for you.
mhm,
Sometimes the directives will supersede a previous
mhm,
directive, but only on one issue, but there's
mhm,
other new things.
mhm.
So my recommendation is that you work with folks, and we can be one of them, that
Yes,
really understand how to read directives and analyze
yes,
them so that you
yes.
can give that information. Okay, good.
Yes. So part of what we want to build out is an advisory board, basically, that will be the people that we say are the vetted experts. And then that advisory board will have access to, these are things we're putting into Dan's brain. Does this make sense? Do you have any differences of opinion? And then our goal is like once a quarter to have an actual, like couple of hour meeting where we talk about where are the real sticky points or where are the contentious points where there's maybe widely disagreeing views so we can kind of all agree, okay, maybe we don't all agree on this, but what do we want Dan to tell the community, right? Like let's at least agree on what we're going to tell people so we're speaking with one voice so that we're as powerful as we can be.
Right. Another thing that occurred to me when you were just speaking before about how it's going to be regional center different is that in 2027, DDS is required to have um, a consistent processes around the self-determination
Yes,
program at all 21 regional centers.
yes,
And hopefully by that time, Dan will be up and running
yes,
well,
yes,
and we will be able to get real-time data to
yes,
show that people are saying this to Dan. My regional center is not following these
yes,
standardized
absolutely.
processes. Okay.
Absolutely. Like in today's world, if you go to a regional center and you go, how are you serving people? They don't know, right? Like they don't know, they
Mhm,
don't have that data. Whereas Dan will
mhm,
be able to give oodles of data. The more we can get people to use it as kind of the front door, there'll be so
mhm.
much good data. And for your work, your policy work, Judy, you'll be able to
Yeah.
say,
Mhm,
by regional center, here are the types of walls that people are hitting and things
yeah.
that people are running into.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll
That's
be
great.
unavoidable.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Okay. Let me go back to my Google Doc. Hold on. Sorry. I closed it out. Um, Okay, so there's just a whole bunch of ideas that we'll get to you that people are putting in the
Yes.
chat, like this is a barrier, this is a barrier. So,
Right.
so Sally's asking, where would the funding to build out Dan come from?
So that's a good question. And I have to say, one of my new best friends, Nathan, is online today. He's our grant writer. And we've hired him part-time working for Kelly, who's also online. He's our president. So we have identified a number of different places where we can go apply for grants. And there are a number of prospects. So that's a longer path. The shorter path is possibly working with the SDP local advisory groups to see about having them help with funding the expansion of Dan. So we've put together like a prototype model, and I'm actually meeting with all the chairs of the local advisory committees to explain Dan, get them excited about Dan first, because if they're not excited, they're not going to care, and then explain how they could potentially help us move this along faster. If there's 2.5 million, I think, that was just given to the local advisory committees across the state. If,
2 million.
yeah, if every one of them gave 10,000, which is half of what they normally give for just building a training course that happens and then vanishes, right? So it's like half of a one-time thing. We could build Dan out like infinitely beautifully. So that's sort of my dream, but like I can't tell them what to do. So
Right.
but the more the community says they like it and that they want it will help us with either path we go down. So
Excellent.
Kelly and I are committed to getting this done by hook or by crook. And we're open to anybody with a pocketbook that wants to talk to us. What
Awesome.
we won't
That,
do is give up control. we
Mhm.
will not give up control. This is going to stay done by the community for the community. We will not give up control. So if someone came in and said, "Oh, I've got venture capital money, let me take this," we'll say no, thank you, and shut the door.
I get it. Lori Walker was asking, and I'm not completely understanding the question, but I'm also not a technical person. She was asking, can you include a back feature? Do you, if Lori, if you're still here, you can just use
I
your
know what she
raise your
means
hand.
because I
Okay,
demoed
good.
it for her and Miriam the other day.
Good.
And
Perfect.
like, let's say, we got to where we got stuck. The reason I stopped the demo is because there's no back button you can click to go
Mm,
right back to one step before. What has happened since we talked, Lori, is there's now a start over button up at the top that'll take you back to the 6 questions. So you can start fresh from the 6 questions. The being able to back up one step is complicated in the pilot, the way we've done the pilot. So that probably won't happen. I won't say can't, but it probably won't happen until we get more funding.
yeah,
But she's exactly right. That's a pain. And
that's
we just
great.
experienced it live.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a couple more questions before we
Sure.
get to the next hand up because there's some excellent questions. Mark is asking, will this also help when you receive a response back from the regional center to upload the response and then Dan will assist in an appropriate response to
Yeah.
that?
Yes, absolutely. So you go in, let's say you go in once and Dan helps you write a email to your regional center, you send it. The regional center comes back with a response. You do two things. First thing you do is you you paste in the prior Dan conversation. And then the second thing you do is you say, and then this is what happened. And you can copy and paste in the regional center exact response. You can just copy their whole email thread in, and Dan will pick right back up with you where you left off. So
That's
yes,
great. That's great. I know that I got muted. Are you guys hearing my sound in the background?
we did for
Because
a minute there, but we
yeah,
powered through.
I'm in a public place and
You
people
are
are
a
talking. So
beloved individual, and people are seeing you. You're going, "Ah, it's Judy."
that was a very powerful state senator that was
And you
saying hi to
should
me.
take his call.
Yeah, hers.
Absolutely. Her call. Yes.
Okay. Um, she was just waving at me. Okay, so we can go to the next hand up.
The next hand up just says iPhone.
Hi, sorry, it's Kim Sandoval. How are you? I have questions because there are some suggestions that I have. Katie Dempsey, she had shared like a 318 page like waiver document like for 1915I and then just the other waivers that may be added, which can help when trying to extract specific waivers, institutional deemed waivers, DD waivers, and other things. Also, another question that I have or suggestion is pulling all the POS purchase of service policies from each regional center that may assist. Another thing that I have is, does it allow us to put what regional center that we're discussing? And then does it give us, because in my head, I've always thought about this stoplight, like where regional center is, right? Well, there's 21 of them. So is this one like experiencing a lot of these same issues? And if we're not in the same room discussing them at the same time or on like sites, we don't know what those issues are. We may assume that they're isolated issues,
Mhm,
right? But
mhm.
are we able to select the regional center that we're discussing, or that we need support with or navigation? And does it give like some type of output of, this is a common um, issue that we are seeing at this specific place, um, like deadlines, timelines, those types of things? Because I've always thought about a space where we can know like red light, green light, yellow light, go. But I mean, not that that's realistic, but if we're not all in the same places at the same time, that's why I love DBU meetings, because we can discuss these things and kind of find out like where it really is, because to gauge it based off of your own personal experiences or your own clients, that could be a little bit tricky. But to know that these are other barriers that someone is facing in real lifetime, that's why the Medi-Cal thing came up, because there's a regional center that typically with like 1915I, they create a lot of barriers to access it for families, right? So having or that knowledge, unless you're sitting with your that either specialize in that regional center or is constantly supporting clients into the SDP in that regional center, you would never know that, right? Because they're isolated to you as a IF. And I know I asked
Got
a lot of things, so I'm sorry.
No, those are all great questions. So I'm going to try to remember them all, and then you can fill me in where I screw up. The first one about the waivers, that's certainly a category of information that we could put into Dan's brain, and we could use it wisely if it makes sense. And that would be a perfect example probably of something we would take to the advisory board to say, what's the value of spending the money to do that versus the gain that we would get? But I think it's a legitimate question. And so we'll log it. Kelly, I'm sure that you heard that. So we'll take a look at that. The second one, the individual regional center POSs. Yes, absolutely. That's the next step when we get funding, is to be able to go in for each regional center and say, these are their POSs. The third, or maybe the last, I might have missed one, but the other question you asked about, like the whole point of Dan is to be able to shine a light on the regional centers. So like Judy could ask us to come once a month to SDP Connect and give you a breakdown across all regional centers of what questions people are asking, so we could provide trends to this community at large. But our intent is to absolutely send those into the individual regional centers and into their SDP local advisory committees so that they're aware and that they can use that information. So the whole sort of the purpose of the tool is to help the person in the moment. But one of the great values of the tool is we will get all that information and we'll be able to look at trends and point out those types of things that you mentioned.
Thank you. And my last question, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Hearings are very, 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 very important.
Yes.
It's important to navigate them, find solutions in them, how to
Yes.
write a position statement, how to locate cases throughout the state through the database, right, to
Yes.
set precedent in those. So
Yes.
is there going to be like a hearing component in the final product as well?
There will be a component, but it will not be a legal component. So you will still want to have a strong advocate, or whatever you think you need in the way of legal support, you'll need to do that. Dan will never be your legal support, but Dan will be able to tell you, these are the 5 hearings that have happened that are, closely connected with your particular issue. Here's how they came out. Here's the information that the families presented that the judge found helpful. Here's the information the families presented that was dismissed as not relevant. It'll be able to, give you knowledge about the past history of what's going on there. And if the advisory board so deems, it may have some additional advice for you in that situation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment on something that Kim was asking about, because she was talking about the different waivers, like the 1950I waiver and the versus the SDP waiver. Like honestly, the SDP waiver is substantially different than all the other waivers. But there's only 2 other waivers within our system. There's the DD waiver, or the developmental disabilities waiver. And for the people who are on that waiver, they have to have a specific severity or level of disability. And then there's the 1915I waiver, which is for everybody else. Anybody could be on the 1915I waiver, regardless of your level of disability. And that's it. There's also the HCBA waiver, which is not an exclusive waiver to the Developmental Disabilities Committee. But I just want people to understand there's no institutional deeming waiver. That's just a way that people get onto a waiver who are not low income and their children. But the waivers themselves, I don't believe are going to provide that much useful information for Dan. I think it's the policies and practices that are much more important to get in there, which is some of it's going to be very easy to put in, and some of it's going to be very nuanced to put in. So I think you're heading in the right direction, Beth. Okay, there's a million questions in here, so let me keep going. Some of the questions I know that people put in here, which are not Dan related, they're general questions. And I promise that if we have time at the end, I'm going to go back and try to answer some of those. Somebody asked, I asked you the same question last week. What is the AI model that you're using?
So we're not using an AI model. We're using an AI tool to develop aspects of the program, but you're not typing into an AI model and it's answering you. So
Right.
it's an important distinction. Dan is built on the law, the regulations, the policies, the procedures, the advisory input. So that's what it's built on. The AI piece of it is just one piece of it, and it just helps to facilitate moving that information around that we've approved and put in there. It's not really, you can't go out and find a tool and go, oh, that's what Dan did, I'll do this.
Right. Somebody's asking, do you have plans to implement user authentication that would allow for more continuity between sessions? And a related question that Rosie's asking is, if Dan is not saving the conversation, then how are you collecting data to identify common barriers and common issues? So they're both about saving and continuity.
Yep. So Dan is saving the tree that you walked down. So it's saving I came in and said, I'm not getting an answer. I've waited 2 weeks. It's a critical issue to me. It's a da 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 da. So it's saving that the flow chart, but it's not saving your individual situation. It's not saving your name. It's not saving any personal information any information you might provide. It's just saving that walking the tree. And that's the data we want to be able to give to the regional center. It's exactly that data, right? So that's how it's saving it. Now, we could, if we had millions of dollars, build a fully HIPAA compliant system that would allow you to plug everything in, but we don't want to wait for that. And we're not even sure that it would give you that much incremental value. So the way we've done this is really very clever. You can say anything you want in the moment. It gives you a button. You can copy what you said and what Dan said. So you've got it. And then when you want to come back, you just re-upload it. So we're not having to pay some developer to figure out how to store that safely, but you're still getting the same value as if it was there. I mean, like literally, it takes you 2 seconds to paste that prior conversation in, and you're right back where you started. And you don't have to worry that someone's got your name or your UIC code or any of that kind of stuff that they're going to do something nefarious with it. But at the same time, the issue you reported is going to be counted along with everybody else's issues. And as somebody said earlier, you're not just alone out in the woods wondering, am I the only one, right? You're one of 20 for that particular issue, or you're one of 50 for that particular issue.
That is actually really clever. And I can tell you that to build a HIPAA compliant website, because it would have to be, because somebody could possibly put private healthcare information in there.
Yes.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah. And then you get all these people that want to investigate it and want to regulate it. And we don't want that. We want this to be our community's tool to use as our voice. We don't want all those people involved in our business.
Exactly. Do you have a dollar amount that you're looking to reach to fund Dan completely? It might help the LVAC sell Dan to the regional centers if we had more financial details.
We are looking right around 200, 250,000. So like if each LVAC was able to squeeze 10,000 out, that would get us a long way towards the goal. I'm sure, though, I'll also caveat that as we go, people are going to come up with more and more ideas of what they want to do. So that's sort of an estimate based on what we think the next really good update would be. But, depending on what people want, it could, we'll do what we can with what we have is what I'll commit to.
That's
and
great.
This is being done in a nonprofit. So we're not, we're not making money off this. We're just literally putting the money into the tool.
And just to tell everybody that Beth is making no money off of this. So do not think that she's giving up her volunteer time to make this happen. And we deeply appreciate that.
I am.
So there's actually a few other questions. Actually, does anybody have a hand up, Tina?
There's a couple.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you call on them?
Alona McFerrin. Alona McFerrin, can you unmute?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was
There
talking
you
to
go.
myself. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's phenomenal. My question is, are there any future plans to include FMS as a component for Dan so that we can see reporting system, we can see what are the things that are going well, what things that we are struggling, because right now we are working in our own silos and experiencing a lot of issues with FMSs in different ways. So that's the first question. And the second, you mentioned that you will use this tool to report data to regional centers. Will it be you who is reporting that, or there's a committee, or how is this going to look in the future? Thank
Well,
you.
Yep, thank you. Those are great questions. We'll be working with our advisory board to fine tune all that, but it'll essentially be me and whoever's on that advisory board deciding what to do. Again, we're not bringing any outsiders in, so right now it's just set up as like literally a table that I could upload at any moment in time, and say we had 15 requests come in today, and of those 10 were on I'm waiting for an answer, and 5 of those 10 were my SDP year is about to expire. So it would be that level of data. And the intent isn't to just give it to the regional center. Actually, we would probably just give it directly to the SDP local advisory boards and let them deal with their regional centers.
Yeah. And about FMSs?
Oh, yeah, about FMSs. Currently, we asked for the regional center because we believe that was an important tracking attribute. And I think I agree with you. It would be important maybe to ask when there's an FMS issue, which FMS it is, so that we could also track types of issues by the FMSs. So that's something we could look at.
Great. Let's take the next hand up, Tina.
There are no hands up.
There aren't any.
Okay, great, perfect. Because there's a whole bunch more questions, some of which are Dan related and some of which are not. So I'm just going to read out because there's a bunch of people watching us on Facebook who are not going to have the benefit of seeing the chat. And so and also for people who are not looking at their phones or their computers, or who may be blind or low vision, it's important to read some of these ideas. So these are just, first of all, some ideas that people have of what you should put in to Dan as barriers. It's like, why do caseworkers not tell us their families and what supports and services are out there to best support us? That's a barrier we hear a lot. We've had issues with learning about a service that is available, but the RC doesn't make awareness of it easy. For example, we thought our son's dentist was covered by Medi-Cal. Wrong. We had to use a budget line item for dentistry. Why weren't we told that? It seems pretty basic. So yes, lack of getting correct information from regional centers is very, very important. Jan was commenting, what is the FMS responsibility and what do we do when they will not help per their FMS responsibility and our understanding in sole employer? The FMS does not want to assist with employee disability claims. When we finally got them to assist, they will now not provide help with how to terminate an employee after a few extensions and 4 months of disability, and they need to hire a new staff. So, that is, Jan actually brings up some really important pieces of information you need to get into Dan, which is around labor laws.
Yes.
Because FMSs are required to follow labor law.
Yes.
And if you are talking to them about certain issues, and labor law also includes disability claims, it could also include workers' compensation claims, but there's a lot of information around that would be very helpful to get into Dan so people understand that stuff.
I agree with you. And that definitely is on the list of targeted additions. Right now, if you say anything that comes close to touching labor law, it says go talk to somebody that's smart about labor
Right.
law, because Dan is not smart on that today. But
Yeah.
you're right. Getting the basics in there would be so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this is just a general question, and you are an expert on the STPs, and so is Tina, so we can all answer. So Liliana was asking, per STP guidelines, are you able to use recreational budget for respite services if necessary? So I'm going to start with the answer, and then Tina and Beth can add. So there is nothing in law or policy that allows regional centers to tell you that what is in your SDP budget must be the same services that go into your spending plan. And if your regional center, and there are several, is telling you that you have to do that, and this is a pat answer that Dan should be saying regularly, is ask your regional center to show you in policy or law where that exists, because most of the time it doesn't exist. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. And so, so there is nothing that has a direct line. However, I will say this, which is also not in law or policy, but it is going to be very soon. I know it's going to come from DDS in the near future. And that is that everything in your spending plan must relate to your IPP goals. They're actually now called desired outcomes, but they're the same thing as goals. And what I feel that DDS is going to come out with a directive on is to say that every one of your IPP goals must be in your spending plan somewhere. So it's in both directions. So if you put as one of your IPP goals that you're going to get in better shape, like you're going to exercise more and get healthier, you can look to, you could say, I'm joining a gym. And so the monthly fee for the gym is meeting that IPP goal. However, if there's an IPP goal that says you're going to get healthier and exercise more, and there is not a single thing in your spending plan that addresses that goal, not today, but sometime in the future, that's going to be a problem. And so the reason that DDS is going in this direction is because some people, it's a very small minority, but some people are using their SDP budget for one person, and it's the parent. So they may have, let's say, a $50,000 budget, the child, or no, it would have to be an adult for the parent to do it. So let's say they have a $50,000 budget. All $50,000 is being paid to a parent to support their adult child. That's not going to fly in the future, guys, because the way that you create your budget is based on your IPP goals. Exercise, or you want to get a job, so there's going to be employment supports in your budget. You want to be in the community more. You want to live in your own place, so they're putting supported living in your budget. Like, you are going to have to show that every single goal in your IPP and every service that is provided to make up your budget is addressed in your spending plan. So if this is going to impact children who receive behavioral therapy through the regional center big time, because regional centers right now are saying there has to be a direct line between the money that you got for behavioral therapy in your budget and contracting with the behavioral therapist in the spending plan. And that is not true. And I've gotten DDS to say that on the record. There doesn't have to be a direct line. However, if you are spending, let's say it's $50,000 of behavioral therapy in the budget, and you're spending it on lots of things like taking an art class or whatever, and you're not able to say, because I'm doing these other things, it will help reduce behaviors, which is the whole reason you're getting behavioral funding, it's going to be a problem in the future, guys. So, they're tightening the rules on the STP as we speak. They are having backroom conversations at DDS where they're tightening up the rules. And so my recommendation is that people need to start getting ready for it now and make sure that if you have employment funds put into your budget, you better be looking for a job, having a job, using job coaching in your spending plan, or or your regional center is going to take away those funds, and they're going to eliminate that goal.
Yep.
So that's my that's how I would answer to the long answer. But Beth, do you have
No,
stuff
I
to add to that?
definitely see that coming down the pike as well.
Mm.
I mean, we can see that pretty clearly. That's the direction it's all going, right? Right now, Dan knows that certain regional centers are extremely strict about how you can put money in the spending plan versus your budget. So many of them, well, I shouldn't say many of them, some of them, mine included Regional Center of Orange County. If you have staff hours, you have to spend them as staff hours in your spending plan, which we all know is not in compliance with the law, but it is what they won't sign off otherwise. So, I mean, it's just, and everybody's experience. I know there's like 20 people on this call, at least I know, that have experienced that personally. So Dan can't fix that for you, but Dan can help you say, okay, let's look at what you're trying to achieve here. Your goal is respite, right? Your goal is you need respite. You get respite because you have your child in a drama class that's right next door to your doctor's office. So you're able to put your child into your drama class while you go to the doctor. That's serving the purpose of respite, but it happens to be a 331 community activity. So it helps you try to bridge the gap. Whether the regional center wants to walk across that bridge with you or not is a different question, right? But it at least tries to give you an approach for how to, how to get there. It does have a lot of logic in there around the IPP goal. What is your goal and how does that relate to what you're asking for, and making sure, is your goal tight enough? Is it specific enough? Is it measurable enough that what you're asking for makes sense, right? So it's got some of that in there. And the next generation, it'll go way deeper on personal centered plans and all that kind of stuff, but it's got sort of the light version of it in this pilot.
Right. So there's a bunch of new things put in the chat.
We got a hand
There is one
too.
hand up. There's also one hand up.
Okay, let me just ask you these because there's like 3 of them with all the same exact theme. So one person is saying there is nothing stopping the regional centers from using this tool as well. Another person saying, what if someone just uses Dan to create false data? And another person saying, is it possible for the regional centers to come up with a counter AI program? Very similar. So
yes,
what do you say to all those?
Yes. So right now, because we're not vetting who goes in, there is a possibility, if someone had a lot of time on their hands, to fill it with bad data. That is a possibility. We'll have to deal with that as we go, again, because we don't want the expense of validating and HIPAAing and all that kind of stuff. We don't actually mind if the regional center uses the tool. In fact, for all the service coordinators that have never received their training, it wouldn't be a bad thing for them to walk through the path and see what it tells them to do. Wouldn't be a bad thing at all. So actually, one of the downstream benefits to Dan could be as a regional center service coordinator training tool. This helps you know how to deal with these things. But there is a risk that somebody would put in weird data, because we're not collecting any personal stories, and because we're just looking at trends. I think we'll be okay. We'll have to take it with a grain of salt, but we should be okay. And if we do run into issues, then we'll deal with it.
And I'll just say, I really seriously hope that the regional centers have other and better things to do than trying to taint the Dan system.
Yes.
I really hope so. Go ahead and take the hand up, Tina.
Esmeralda Mora, you can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. My wife forwarded it to me, but so my name is Juan Mora.
Hi, Juan.
It's hello. No, it's great that you're starting this. It's like for us, even for our son, which is deaf, blind, with autism, CMT, physical disabilities. And it's like we're going through the SDP process now. But we're trying to put everything together, but then they're taking away recreational things, because they're saying that's a generous budget, but they're taking away things. So we're going back and forth. And like you said, the stall tactics, we're seeing that now. I mean, email after email after email after email. And then our son is 29, and we know summer's coming around the corner, and you're not going to get nobody in the summer months. So we're probably looking at September. But it's like they have no services for deafblind together, and they have no understanding of what an intervener is that's starting to help deafblind people. They want to substitute it with, they call it a so-called co-navigator, which is not the same. So now we're defining each thing differently so they could understand, to build a support group around them. Because for him, with his balance, also, with his physical challenges, he needs like three people. He needs an interpreter, he needs a guide, he needs three people at once to support his team.
Mm-hmm.
But this is really a great idea that you guys started, and I really applaud you. And to be in general of all disabilities, it'll help. You could count us in for any kind of information you would need. But yeah, I just wanted to say this is awesome.
Thank you so much. And you're right. There's so many situations where in today's world, the services just don't meet the need. And so, again, anything we can do to help capture that and magnify that. Like, one of my thoughts is, if I can come to Judy and say, okay, this month we had 200 people all say this, Judy would say, oh, I'm going to put my DVU hat on and go advocate for this with DDS, right? Because now it's tangible, practical, data-oriented information, as opposed to with just the normal noise level, like, DVU can't really go fix every single thing, right? They don't have the budget either. So I'm hoping that the advocacy groups will be able to use this information as a layer of their policy input to drive better policy as well.
Oh, definitely,
Oh,
because
we might.
they drove us to, dig into the Latterman Act, and no
Yes.
responses. We go to the top, we skip, we just go to the
Yep.
top, start rattling
Yep.
some emails, and then we start getting responses.
Yeah, I talked with a lawyer the other day actually about a case that I'm in with my son, and she was talking about someone who was deaf as well as a regional center qualifying disability, and how difficult it was to get the regional center to look at the combination and serve the person and not just the qualifying disability. So I recently became very painfully aware of that.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you know this, but what is your name again, sir?
Juan.
Juan. I'm not sure if you know this, Juan, but there was a very large class action lawsuit on behalf of individuals served by regional centers who are also deaf or blind or deafblind, that was settled by Disability Rights California a few years ago. Are you aware of that, Juan?
I believe we are, because I think, matter of fact, we met them at a deaf blind
Right.
episode. I mean, engagement at the park, and that's how
Great.
we started getting more involved
Right.
and go forth for that. But it was kind of a different, like, I believe for that one, it was more severe, but it's still the same thing. But we heard about that one case that went and they won in court.
Not just one case, it was a class action lawsuit on behalf of all regional center clients who are deaf or blind or deafblind. And it was a very large settlement. It was probably maybe 5 years ago. And it provides a whole bunch of new opportunities, allegedly, for individuals like your son. I'm going to reach out to you privately through the chat and get your contact information so that I can connect you with the attorneys that filed that lawsuit, because they are continuing to monitor the situation. And if they hear about the struggles that you're having with your child, I think hopefully it might be helpful. We don't know. But to also add on to something that Beth said, Beth saying it will be great to have this data. So there's the big data where we're seeing lots of people, and then there's the individual like your son, who is different than most 99.9% of other people served by regional centers. And I think that both of those things matter when it's a
Right.
compelling story like your son's, where he literally needs 3-on-1 because of his level of disability and multiple disabilities. And so both of those information we need to be capturing in some kind of important way. So I
Right.
really appreciate it. I'll try to find you in the participants zone and give you my email address so you can reach out to me.
Yeah.
He's
No,
under
thank you.
Esmeralda.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'll
my
look
wife,
you
so
up
you
as
could.
Esmeralda.
Yes.
Esmeralda. Okay.
And
No,
you're
she
right, Judy.
forwarded to me.
It was the lawyer at DRC that I was talking to, and she was telling me about what a pain that was to go get that done. So, yeah, one, if you haven't already talked to them, definitely talk to them because they are very aware and attuned to this challenge.
No, and even then, like as he's growing up now, and I forgot to add also, he had 2 seizures 6 months apart.
Mm,
Also, so I mean, it's just a lot, and then but they don't understand it. Even like DOR closed this case because they don't understand what is neuropathy. He can't button close, he can't type, he can't, his balance. I mean, even when he went to community college, his brain's not broken, but then they were trying to kind of accuse saying we were doing his work. And I go, no, we're helping him. But these are his understanding, these are his answers. I go, he can't type, because there's neuropathy in his hands, all over his body, his legs. He has, braces, in his legs to help him with his balance. I mean, we went through a lot, but we just keep fighting for him. The
You're a good
DOR.
dad.
The DOR closed him because they wasn't understanding neither. He's going to need help. He's going to
mm,
need help for the rest of his life. And they wanted to send him somewhere where he has to be independently completely. I go, that's not the case for him. I go, he is unique. He's just not like everybody else that's only deaf blind, but have no physical challenges. I go,
mhm.
he's not that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And hopefully Judy's contact will help you.
Yeah. I just messaged you. I just private
Yeah.
messaged you on.
Okay. No,
Okay.
thank you.
And
Thank you.
you can feel to reach out to me individually too. I don't know what I can do to help, but I'm all in if there's anything I can do.
Oh, I appreciate that a lot. I mean,
Sometimes listening, sometimes
yeah.
listening helps.
Oh,
Oh, Emma,
definitely.
wait, there's actually a Emily from DRC is
Oh,
here.
is she?
So amazing. Emily
Oh, and that's
put,
who I was talking to. Yeah.
yes, she put the lawsuit in the case. I'm the case in the chat. Jeez, she put the lawsuit information in the chat. Look up at Emily Ikuda.
Mhm.
Emily's an amazing attorney at DRC, and works in the litigation division in the IDD practice area. And Emily's a great resource. So so excited that you're here, Emily. Really honored that you
Thank
came.
you.
Okay. All right. Is there any other hands up, Tina? Because I have a bunch more in the chat.
There is one more hand up. We have critically low on time.
Oh, yeah, we are. Okay, so let's just do some
One
stuff
thing
in
I
the
do
chat.
want to say
Yeah.
is the link was in the chat for signing up for the pilot. Kaylee put in the link a couple of different times, so make sure you got that. That's going to send you to a Google form where you have to put in your email and what regional center you're with, but then you'll get the link to the pilot and you can use it and give us feedback. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that before they leave today.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But definitely put that in. So we have just a few more minutes. So let's try to jam through some of these questions. Tatiana was asking about are there directives or rules regulating regional center actions on where I can put funds while developing the spending plan? Are the regional centers micromanaging, asking about each service code and item? I thought they are answering how much money question and the client answers where to spend it according to goals. So Tatiana, that's the way the program was in the very early days, but it is not that way anymore. There is a lot more micromanaging of spending plans. There's a number of reasons for it. I think one reason is that regional centers like to control us, and DDS likes to control us, and they're realizing that they can't control us in the SDP, so um, they're jamming down. Um, they're reining us in. I think another reason is that in some cases people did abuse the system and were putting things on their spending plan that they shouldn't, and maybe the regional centers approved it and they shouldn't. And so there's just a lot of attention being paid, like a lot more attention than it deserves, I think, in the attention being paid to the SDP. We're only 1% of the regional center population, and no attention's being paid to the other 99% about the abuse that happens in day programs and at group homes, that people die in day programs and at group homes. Like, you guys should know that not a single person in the SDP has died negligently. Not one in all of the years that yes, people have died because of their disability or other reasons, but no one has died, not one person, even through the 25 years of the pilot project. None have died because of negligence or abuse. And that it cannot in any way be said of the traditional system. People are dying all the time under the watch of traditional service providers. So I don't know why they're spending so much time on us, but they don't like us. Somebody was asking, when we started SDP, minor changes in the spending plan, switching funds, even between categories of less than 10%, did not need a new spending plan. Now, even switching $10 requires a new spending plan. Why the change? Yes, I agree. It's such a nightmare, and it's providing more work for the regional centers, more work for independent facilitators, more lag time, even when it's $10. And I have seen this happen. And what I can say is that it doesn't happen at all the regional centers with all of the service coordinators, but it is happening at most places. And the reason they're doing this is they want to control us. It's almost the exact same answer. They want to control us, but at the same time, a few bad apples did some bad things on their spending plan, and now they want to control us even more. So that is why that change is there. There was a new directive. No, sorry, it was trailer bill language last year in July that came out that requires even a $10 change on a spending plan, even within the same service code, requires approval of the regional center. And so if you think you're waiting a long time to get a response, now wait till more directives come out about that. It's going to be a nightmare. So, we work hard every day at DVU to try to make these changes, to make things be logical, but I can't promise you that will be the case. There's so many questions in here. So somebody was asking where to look up that case. It's in the chat, everybody. Just scroll back in the chat, look up Emily, put it in the chat. Here's just a final, you have like 1 minute to answer. Can Dan help in writing an IPP and setting goals if you do not yet have a budget and spending plan? Like, is that one of the targets you're looking at?
In the pilot, it's not going to help you do a full thing, but there is a lot of logic in there about how to write a good goal for your IPP. So you could kind of ask it a question at a time. Like, I want to be able to have my child take swim lessons. Help me formulate the right IPP goal that would support that in my spending plan. You could ask it questions like that. Kelly, our board president, actually said, as an IF, I want to be able to upload budgets and download spending plans and all that kind of stuff. And we're not at that level, but you can definitely tackle any individual question. And I do, just before we disconnect, make sure you sign up for the demo. For the pilot, make sure that if you are a member of a community group, church, a local language group, whatever, I'm more than happy to present to your groups over Zoom. So reach out to me. I put my email in the chat. Make sure that, we want this to go as far and as wide as we can so we can get as much feedback as we can.
And the link for the pilot was just put in the chat. So everybody should have it. And it is 6:00 and we have to go because I need to get to the airport and fly home because I am tired. But everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you back here in a month. We don't know what our topic's going to be because we have a lot of stuff going on and there is a lot to talk about. But thank you so much to our guest speaker, Beth Martinko, and your amazing Dan program. We are so excited about the opportunities that it provides. And everybody have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.